This video here is going to be a recap of Florida for the dual threat from Lake Okeechobee and St. Johns River. This was the first ever dual threat event. And so truthfully, I didn't really know what to expect out of it. I know that initially they had planned on having 100 boats with entry fees, and then they switched it to a no entry fee event with just 60 boats. And a lot of the biggest names in the sport decided to sign up and fish it. So it was a really stacked field between Elite Series guys, BPT guys, and then a handful of anglers like myself who have fished in bigger tournaments but weren't at that level, and then even a few influencers. So let's talk about Okeechobee first. When we got there, I knew that it was going to be a cold front, and I knew we were going to have a big north wind. I watched a lot of the footage from previous Bassmaster events there at Okeechobee, and I'd really narrowed it down with the cold front to the north side of the lake, North Shore. We went out of Rollins, so that was a pretty good boat ride, an hour or so across the lake. We picked that area. The first day of practice we went into, I believe they call it Bankhead. We had to lock into there. First day of practice, we went in there because we had wind gusts of like 50 to 60 miles an hour. It was crazy wind. Even back there in those canals, it was crazy wind. We did a lot of flipping, did a lot of looking, and we really settled down to the bite being on a 3/8 ounce jackhammer chatterbait, golden shiner color with a 4-inch Lake Fork tackle, magic shad, and pearl white or shiner color. And we were rolling it on the edge of the grass and catching a lot of buck bass. So truthfully, when I was in there, I didn't know if they were like buck bass getting ready to spawn, because you would see the old tilapia beds, but again, the bass will use those beds, but I don't think that very many were actually up ready to spawn. But I couldn't tell for sure if they were buck bass or that was just the smaller bass size in that canal system. So we had a great day. We got a lot of bites. I maybe had 11 or 12 pounds and probably had 20 bites. So that aspect of it, it was really good. And we were very limited as far as where we could run around. Day two, we went to the Kissimmee River. And the Kissimmee River is one of those areas that has a lot of history of winning between Polinick and Rivette, and just a lot of top finishes in Bassmaster events and different tournaments have come out there. So I know winning fish live in the river. And the best part of the river is it's a lot deeper. So you don't have to, the cold front affects those deep water fish and current fish less than it would those shallow fish. So we spent some time in the Kissimmee, looked around, and we went back to the back and did some cranking and caught one or two. And we found a few areas that kind of made funnel points, and we were able to catch some fish in those little narrow spots as the current would push through. And so that was good, but there was one particular spot, we had one lone 6-pound bite, but that was the biggest bite of practice. So we kept that in the back of our mind. We didn't get a lot of bites though. We hit a lot of shell beds, a lot of things in there. Maybe only had 2 or 3 bites in the Kissimmee River, but they were all quality fish. Day 3, we fished Harney Pond. We fished Indian, the Canal Indian system there. And then we hit the Tin House area, all the area out there on the main lake reeds, because we wanted to keep that stuff on us, because in a perfect world, in most tournaments, that's where it goes down. We flipped a lot of reeds, and again, we got 10 bites or so, but it was just slow, and we never saw the quality fish. I did hook one in Indian on a chatterbait that was a big one. We didn't get a good look at it, but it left a big swell. And so we thought it was a bass, but again, you can't tell for sure. So, I mean, that was our practice. So going into it now, it's like, where do we begin? We talked about it, and we decided to start in the Kissimmee River, because at the end of the day, that's where the biggest fish we caught in practice were. We didn't get a lot of bites, but one thing about Florida is each quality, those big bites go a long way. So if you can get a couple quality bites, it really helps. So we started in the Kissimmee, and I'm rolling a chatterbait, and the first bite of the tournament, my dual threat career, was an 8-pounder. So we were pretty pumped. It's a great way to start, but obviously it's one fish. My second bite went 7-2. So to start off the tournament, I had 15-2 on my first 2 bites. And we hung out in that area, and we never got another big bite that day. And we ended up with around 23 pounds. We caught a limit, we only caught like 6 to 7 keepers all day. We didn't get a lot of bites, but the quality was there. Day 2 rolls around, and we didn't have a boat around us. Day 2 rolls around, we get to our area, we're fishing, we got a few in the box, and another competitor shows up. This is a small spot, like maybe 100 foot on each side. Another competitor shows up, and I talked to him, and I was like, hey, you weren't here yesterday. What's going on? He's like, are you leading the tournament? I already said, how'd you do yesterday? I said, you leading the tournament? I said, yeah, I'm leading the tournament. He goes, okay, cool, drops trolling motor. So now I had company in the area. And the problem with that is it was two little small stretches that needed time to reload with the current. And with 2 boats in there, you just couldn't get it to reload. And both of us struggled. I finally wanted to go check some of my other stuff because I was frustrated. I left. And then, I heard them talking on stage. They caught a 7-pounder off that spot. Day 2, later in the day, once we left. And we only had 10 pounds. We struggled all day. When we left, we never had another bite anywhere else. Day 3 rolls around, running a bullet. I'm going to get there first. I got my spot first. This other boat showed up too. We both struggled. And finally, a pontoon boat got in there on top of it too, so it made it even harder to fish. They left, and then we ended up catching a 7-pounder and some really good fish, and ended up 17 pounds or something like that, and finished 3rd place. And we also got big bass of the day, so we ended up winning $15,000 for 3rd, and we got big bass 2 of the 3 days, so that was pretty cool. 17 grand, first ever tournament. And the way they do their system, which is pretty neat on their points, for anywhere of the year, first place is 100, second's 99, and so forth, third's 98. Well, we finished 3rd, and that they give 3 bonus points for big bass, so we ended up with 101 points out of, basically, so we ended up 1 point ahead of first place after the first event. So we were super pumped, on a high, but this massive cold front hit us there. So we drive to St. John's, and the cold front hits. Never been there, and man, is Florida a humbling place. We went from top of the world at Okeechobee to struggle bussing all through practice at St. John's. We were getting 3 to 5 bites a day, that was it. And the best area we found was an 1.5-hour boat ride one way. So it made it really hard, but we didn't really have anything else. We had one little spot close, and then we had one spot, an 1.5 hours away. We ended up starting off close, spent about 2 hours, never had a bite, made the run, and I caught one little keeper, and then my partner broke a good one off on the Carolina rig, and then we were fishing shell beds. And then I saw a fish, and I was like, that's probably too big to be a bass. It looks kind of like a bass. And I threw a minnow at it, shook it over it, and it bit it, and it was a giant fish. It came up, it just started stripping jag, came up and pulled off. It was a really big fish, but we only had 3 bites that day. Come to find out, all the top teams with that cold front pretty much were scoping. I saw them lined up and down the river, and that was something I didn't do enough of. When I go to Florida, I want to catch them power fishing and not staring at a screen, but it was a valuable lesson of the power of the minnow. Even in Florida, when it gets tough, you almost have to be fishing strictly forward-facing sonar to compete at this level. So we didn't do well. We fished day 1, talked to the tournament director, and he said we can head back to Texas. We were covered up in snow here, and we have a bunch of livestock and other things, so we cut out a day early, took St. John's as our throw out, because in the points through dual threat, you get 1 throw out a year. So we threw it out. We left with 1 good event in Florida, 1 bad. And that's pretty much the shakedown of what happened there in Florida. As a whole, we were at the high of high and low of lows. And I think that's pretty much how my whole career has been in Florida. It's a pretty tricky place to fish when you have those fronts and that sort of thing. I actually prefer when we'd have our Florida events later in the year, like April to June. You get a lot less affected by those fronts. It's actually a lot more enjoyable to fish Florida then. But as a whole, dual threat, first ever event, went well. Obviously, any new organization, you're going to be, figuring out the system of how to do things. And I think they'll get more polished and professional as well as it goes on. But thoroughly enjoyed the event, the crew running it was great. I'm super thankful to fish for that kind of money without entry fees, and fish with my buddy Leslie Kennedy, who's pretty much family to me. I've been fishing with him in working man tournaments and events like that my whole life. And, I tell people it was arguably the least stress of a big event I've ever fished. I mean, I was fishing with my Tuesday night partner for a whole bunch of money against some of the best fishermen in the world. And it felt like fishing a big money derby on a Tuesday night, or like just a local thing. So it was a lot of fun. We have Eufaula, Oklahoma on the next one, and that's a lot closer to home, and I think we'll be a lot more comfortable with that. I leave here in a week for the Bassmaster on Rayburn. I actually did not get to fish out of my boat at this tournament because when I went and pre-practiced Rayburn, I hit a rock or a stump. I don't know what, it was 9 foot low. So special thank you to the man who loaned me the boat. You know who you are. And that's where we are. So we're gonna get ready. We went to Pickwick when we left Florida, came back home, went back to Pickwick for a couple of days because I have a Federation National Championship there. We're a week away from the Bassmaster at Rayburn, and about 3 weeks away from the dual threat at Eufaula, followed by 2 weeks after that, Pickwick. So got a busy schedule, gonna be all over the place this year. The last thing I wanna say is we just ordered our Starlink system and everything like that. We are going to make a good attempt to stream our events, the ones that are allowed on YouTube, so we can do live coverage on the water during these tournaments. So, well, thank you. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching, and see you soon.